wanted tonight to just be I wanted tonight to just be sort of casual. We're going to share lessons that we've learned, and you know, we're certainly not experts in any of this. We've been married almost 14 years. So yeah, some of you may have even been married much longer than us, but
I'm working on 36 this year.
36. Wow, anybody beat that? That's awesome.
6 months for us.
6 months?
There you go.
Anybody beat that? A lower amount? No.
Some of us haven't even.
We're not.
Not yet.
There you go.
Yeah.
Not yet. Not yet.
Beat that.
Beat that. Yeah, so I wanted to, honestly, I know so many people have been struggling. This year has been, you know, lots of crisis. It's been filled with stress. It's been lots of close contact when maybe you weren't with each other 24/7 before that. So we just want to speak life into marriages. We just want to share what we've learned, share some biblical principles, pray over you. Yeah, that's about it. So we kind of got together over the past couple days and said, what have we learned in 13 years? What are the like top 7, top 10? I think we got 7 lessons that we've learned, and so we're just gonna go through them one by one, and then I have a book giveaway and some other resources for you. So, ready?
She'll be talking the most.
I just asked him to jump in whenever. So, and then at the end too, we'll have questions. So we can take questions. So if you think of stuff along the way, jot it down. I didn't bring pens up here. Does anyone need one?
I'll go grab some.
Will you?
Does anybody want
I'll take one.
Yeah, just grab a handful. Thank you, Fred. Yeah, so first lesson, first and foremost for us, is that our relationship comes first after God. So it doesn't come first, right? Our relationship comes after our individual relationships with God. So that doesn't necessarily mean we sit down and pray together every night or we're doing devotionals every night, but that each of us individually has to pursue Jesus to the best of our ability, and then our relationship. Obviously, Matthew 6:33 says, "Seek first the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and he will give you everything you need." So, you want a great marriage, you want a great relationship with anyone, you have to put it in the right place. It goes second, not first. And it goes second, not third, fourth, fifth, right? We've also seen a lot of people put kids first in their relationship. The relationship suffers. It sounds really good to say kids come first, right? And it's like sort of that default setting, especially when they're little. They have lots of needs. Raise your hand if you need a pen. Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's easy for them to come first, especially in a busy season. I know when our kids were real little, I went through this season where it felt like I had 3 big roles in my life, right? I was a leader, a pastor, a boss. I was a mom, and I was a wife. And I could only, at any given day, I could only get 2 out of those 3 done well, right? It felt like the other one always suffered. If I killed it at the job and I killed it at being a mom, we didn't even talk, right? Or if I was a great wife that day and a great mom, I didn't get any work done or whatever. It just felt like I was in the season where I couldn't get all 3 done well in any given time. So instead, I chose to try to not let any one of them suffer for too many days in a row, right? Like, I spent a lot of time with him. If I had barely seen him in 3 days, then he came first the next day, you know what I mean, or whatever. So it's not that you have to, I actually think balance is kind of a myth. Don't know that people that are passionate about what they do like we are ever achieve that like perfect work-life balance, but it's about making sure each other is cared for however that works. So the important thing is that you're intentional about making that time for each other. I like to tell the story when my son Prue was 5. I remember we were driving and he said to me, "Mommy, who do you love better, Daddy or us? For sure thinking I was going to say them, right? And I said immediately, easily, I said, Daddy. And he went, oh, what do you mean? And I was like, Bud, if I don't love your daddy best, you're going to suffer. And the best way that I can possibly love you, and this is hard for a 5-year-old to understand, it's hard for adults to understand, but the best way that I can love you is by loving him. We want to model a healthy, loving relationship for our kids. So that's how we do that. And eventually I said, you guys are going to grow up and leave me, right? We should be still together at that point. We should have something left still at that point. A lot of couples forget.
We should have something in common.
Right. That isn't the kids.
Yeah, because kids often are the common denominator that hold a marriage together. And when the kids leave, you're two individuals who don't know how to live together because you have no common denominator anymore.
Right. So.
But maybe you'll have kids.
Hopefully.
It's a big space of time for most
Then
people.
you can spoil them and send them back to China.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, so it was a very easy answer for me that I love Daddy better, and that is the best way that I can love them, is by focusing on this, making sure we're solid. Because kids pick up on stuff too. They know when there's tension in the house. They can feel that. They can read it. They can disperse and scatter when you all are fighting. You know what I mean? So it's the best way we can love each other is maintaining that peaceful household, and that's by putting that intention on each other. And you do that it can be a weekly date night. You can set aside time to focus on each other, or a monthly date night, or just time spent with the door shut and, locked for a little while, you know what I mean? Just time away from them, just to focus on you. I can remember, actually, the first couple of times when they were real little, we went away. It was like a conference or something, but I still remember oh, hi. Like, I remember you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you exist in the same space, but you sort of forget to focus on each other.
You're not that guy living on my couch.
Yeah. We're not just roommates. Like, I remember you.
Do you think that it has been made a little more difficult seeing that you have a job that you can't leave at the office?
Oh, sure.
For sure. There are many arguments and issues about that, for sure.
Well,
But it is an overtaking job. It's everything to do with all of our life, all of the time. And there are some times when the phone goes on Do Not Disturb and stays in the other room. You know what I mean? We have to separate ourselves from it sometimes. But I think usually we
Manage it pretty well.
manage the tension well. Not tension between us, but there's
Family versus
it's not
job.
a balance, it's a tension to manage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think of my parents, now I'm a different generation, I just turned 60, but my parents on Saturdays, us kids always took a nap. It wasn't until I got married I figured out what was going on. But yeah, so if the kids are all in nap time,
Yeah.
you have time that you can spend to yourself
Yeah.
too. But it's actually
Take
kind of
that
a
time.
brilliant, but it's a brilliant little idea.
And sometimes it's, you might have dishes piling up and you might have things you gotta do, but take the time. You know what I mean? That stuff can be done. This needs time. So, yeah. I heard a quote lately, I think it was a comedian, but I cannot remember which one, where he said, a lot of people complain about marriage, about how hard it is. Marriage isn't hard if you're both working on it. It's not actually that hard if both people are working on
And you
it.
need to be on the same.
But it's when only one person is working on it that it's very difficult. So it's just something you have to be intentional about. It does come first after God. And one way to do that is by getting to know each other. Actually know each other. You might think you know each other on your wedding day. But let me assure you, you have a lot more to learn. Let's just put it that way. One of the main things I think for us learning early on was love languages. Anybody not know what I'm talking about when I say love languages? There's a book called The 5 Love Languages. You don't absolutely have to read the whole book to get the concept. It's really, the languages are time spent, so hanging out with each other, It doesn't necessarily have to be dialoguing and staring deeply into each other's eyes, but just time spent around each other in the same space. Touch, cuddles, hugs, kisses, holding hands, just that physical touch, a way that you communicate love to somebody. Words of affirmation, saying nice things to each other is a way that people give and receive love. Gifts, pretty self-explanatory, and then acts of service, doing things for each other. And so these are love languages we all use all of the time with all of the relationships that we have, but usually people have like a top two that really mean a lot to them. They communicate well in them. They give them easily. And I guess if you're lucky, you marry somebody that has your same top two.
Yep.
We did not. So I remember early in marriage, he was sitting on the couch playing video games, and I was reading a book, sitting on the couch reading a book. And I got up and I went to the bedroom to lay down and read a book where I would be more comfortable. And he came in hours later or something, and he was like, "Where'd you go?" I was like, I'm reading. And he's like, "Yeah, but why'd you leave me?" Like, he felt like I abandoned him or something.
Or like you're mad or something.
Or yeah, like are you mad at me? Like, why'd you leave? I'm like, no, it's more comfortable in here. We weren't talking, we weren't cuddling, we weren't, like, I didn't get why this was such a problem. There was nothing happening, so why can't I go in the other room? But for him, time spent is a big deal. Just existing in the same space, not talking, that's just one of his things. So knowing that now, sure, I can sit on the couch and read the book beside you, like, no problem. It just didn't mean that as much to me as it did to him. So now we can speak the same language, even though it means less to me. I know it means something to him, and I can love him in the way that he can receive it. Does that make sense? So for me, it's words, and he sort of had to learn that aspect of just sometimes I just need to hear "I love you."
I mean, because if you know me, I'm a straight shooter, and so I'm like, of course I love you. Like, why do I need to tell you 5 times a day? Like, I married you, we live together, we have kids. Of course I love you. Yeah, I understand that now, but I didn't get it at first. Like, it seems needy to me.
Yeah.
But then I felt needy to her.
Right.
But so it's just different ways we communicate, and they change. Heads up.
Yeah.
Hey. Kids happen. They change.
So yeah, mine were definitely words was top, but when I had little ones, I wanted you to do things for me or I did not feel loved because I had so many things to do in every given day. So it definitely, like, if he wasn't taking the trash out or
Which
like helping
leads
with
to our next point.
whatever.
Mind reading.
It does, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
Spoiler alert.
We'll get there. So yeah, so love languages is a big deal. Definitely learn. If you know somebody well enough, you can probably pick out what theirs are. Knowing a little bit about the 5, it's a quick study on Google if you want to look up what they actually are and what they mean. But know your spouses and minister to them in that, like, love them in the way that they can hear it and feel it, not just in the way that you feel it. And be willing to ask for what you need, especially if your spouse's isn't the same language as yours. That will also get there. But yeah, another one is like this year, just for an example, we learned a lot about our Enneagram personality types. It's just a personality test. There's 9 types, and they get very detailed and in depth, and I dove in hardcore and got to know both of ours. He's an 8, I'm a 9. And they definitely have a big impact on how you relate to each other.
It helps you understand how yourself works.
Right.
And makes it a little bit more clarity out of how you react to certain things, or
Yeah.
how you are in situations, and it helps you understand everybody.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Everybody that has been in any small group with me over the past 6 months probably knows your type because I made you figure it out. But yeah, it's just, you can use any personality test. I mean, there's the Myers-Briggs or whatever, but I found that Enneagram shows you a little bit more of why you do what you do, like your underlying fears and motivations, whereas the other ones are sort of like more behavior-based, what you're going to do, not why you do it. So Tommy's still a question mark.
I'm like 10.
We're gonna figure him out.
I don't know.
So yeah, that's just another way, but get to know each other, like study each other, be students of each other, understand how each other works, and you signed up to love them. So actively love them, choose to love them in the way that
And
they
to
can
learn
hear
how.
it. And to learn how to love them, yeah. Unity is not the absence of individuality. Embrace one another without eliminating each other. This was a sort of a parenting lesson as well. But for a while there, we were like, you know what? I need to be able to let him be a dad, and he needs to be able to let me be a mom. And we need to do that with personalities too. We fell in love with each other's personalities at some point, so why are we trying to make the other one do what I would do? Why not let him play to his strengths? You know what I mean? And lean into that. So I think a lot of times in marriages, you kind of want to force you on the other person. Like, no, you have to behave in the way that I would. He's his own person. He has his own strengths and weaknesses. Why not just let him be him? That's the person I fell in love with. Why make him be me, you know? So yeah, marriage is a miracle unfolded over time. Celebrate often. That's just another point that goes toward, you know, our relationship comes first after God. Celebrate it often for no reason. You know what I mean? Celebrate your 6th month, celebrate your first kiss, celebrate your, I don't know, whatever. Half birthdays.
I do that for her.
Celebrate weird stuff because it's a miracle that you're still together. You know what I mean? It's a miracle. Marriage is a miracle. Celebrate often. We also reminisce a lot. We'll talk about the beginnings of our relationship or memories or, you know, that's a form of celebrating everything that we've been through, everything that we've conquered together. So yeah, our relationship comes first after God. Number 2 is we're not mind readers.
That's my point.
We're not mind readers. I put Philippians 4:6 in there because it says, don't worry about anything, and said, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for all he has done. If God, who knows everything that you need, still wants you to tell him, how much more does your spouse need that? Right? We're not mind readers. I think I expected him to be a mind reader.
Especially when her love languages change.
Yes.
That was a hard point.
It was. I needed things done, and I wasn't communicating that at all. I thought he'd just see it and jump in and help, but he's not a mind reader. So, and I think I realized through all of that, there's 2 kinds of families. Most of us have grown up in one or the other. There's what I call the hint droppers, people that don't communicate what they want and need. The whole household plays by these like mysterious unwritten rules, right? Everybody just assumes. Becky, you know what I'm talking about? She's laughing over there. They drop hints for each other, and then everybody feels it and sort of guesses what everybody wants, and nobody actually says what they ever need. That's the kind of household I think I grew up in. Like we don't communicate things probably as well as we should have. And then there's the say everything families he grew up in. Right?
Proud.
You say everything. Like you'll know this. Just think about your own family. When you receive a gift in front of your family that you hate, do you say, thank you so much, I love it, and lie your butt off? Or do you say, this is dumb, why would you give me this? That's the test. My family, thank you so much, this is so nice, I love it. You know what I mean? We gush. Aaron's family is like, what is this? And nobody gets offended.
It's funny.
The weirdest thing to me. Yeah.
It makes you buy gifts to offend, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, you've either grown up probably in a hint dropper family or a say everything family, and when you come from opposite families, you need to learn a few things. I needed to learn how to say what I needed and wanted out loud for him because he wasn't catching any of my hints, and that wasn't his fault. And what?
I had to be less forward? Is
No,
that mine?
no.
Oh,
You
okay.
have to occasionally say, how can I help?
Oh,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, what are you thinking? Like, say words to me. You know what I mean? Sometimes he has to pull them out of me, but that's what he needed to learn from me. That I'm not just gonna say what I need.
And probably being less harsh because I'm just say it as I see it. And like, you're not real good with that.
No.
You weren't real good with that.
Well, yeah, because I grew up in this family where you're like suddenly, oh, he looked at me wrong. Like, you know what I mean? That must mean something. I don't know.
So whenever
So-
I was like super like truthful,
It was
it was like
the world was
devastating. I was
ending.
like,
Yeah. So, but here's the thing. Even if you grew up in the same kind of family, you still have some things to learn. If you both grew up in hint dropper families, you have to ask each other, how can I help you right now? What are you feeling and thinking right now? You have to pull it out of each other a little bit. And you'll get to these points where you're suddenly not communicating anything because you're trying to tiptoe around a fight. You know, you're trying to prevent the fight, but it's going to blow up eventually. Stop trying to prevent it and just communicate with each other, you know? But then also, if you both grew up in a say everything family, you have a tendency to blow things up on the regular. And you
like,
have to
I think,
learn how to.
I think one of the areas I learned this to communicate with you was whenever you get ready. You're like, what do you think of this? I think, it looks great. Look, you look great. And then
Like
she
you
walks in
didn't
the
even
room.
look.
She walks in the room and comes back out with something else. Why do you ask me? Like, okay, then don't ask me next time because you're gonna change your mind anyways.
I wanted to know all the opinions along the way. Yeah.
Now I just say, it looks great, babe.
Here's something. So the next piece says, every so often, ask how am I doing? Now this is not just a flippant in the hallway going past each other, how am I doing? This is you're out to a nice dinner, there's no distractions.
And wear your seatbelt because
And be ready for the actual answer. If you're going to ask the question, be ready for the actual answer. Do not react defensively. Don't make it into a big thing. If you're going to ask it, make sure you're ready to hear the answer. Honestly, if we've been married or together any length of time, you probably already know what they're going to say. You have an inkling. So if you're not ready to hear it and change or do something about it, don't ask. But it can be incredibly healthy for your relationship if you're willing to ask with a humble heart. How am I doing? How can I be better at being your spouse? How can I love you better? Is there anything I can do to do this better? If you react badly to that question, to the answer to that question, you likely will never hear another honest answer again. Right? They're going to know next time, nope, you're good. Right? They're going to avoid the fight. So answer honestly.
The flip side of that is that you have to be ready to answer the question.
yeah, honestly,
Yes.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And you have to be able to do it in a way that your partner is going to be receptive to it. And that's where the brutal honesty can really be challenging.
Yeah.
Because you have to find a way to rein that back so that the other person can be able to hear it.
Right.
I
But
know-
somebody has to start it. You know what I
Somebody
mean?
always has to
Somebody
start
has
it,
to
yeah.
start it. You have to be willing to hear it, even if it's bitter and angry and awful, and then honestly change, or you know what I mean? If you don't change from that.
But honestly, and the thing about an 8, I guess I'll use the 8 as an 8.
Enneagram 8, his personality.
As an 8, that's who I am. I'm black and white. There's no gray ever. Like I have a hard point view on everything.
Immediately knows his opinions.
Yeah, but like if I go to her and say, how am I doing? Or she says, how am I doing? She knows me by now that I'm saying it. It might come across harsh, but it's not that I'm trying to be harsh. I'm just being truthful, and I'm asking in love. And that comes with the growth of your relationship too.
Intimacy and trust, yeah.
Yeah, like she knows that I'm not saying it to hurt her, but how I would think is like, yeah, you sucked in this area lately.
And that's how people say it.
I don't mean
No,
to mean.
but that was part of the Enneagram thing. It's this year, and I mean 13 years in, right? We're still figuring this out, but like I realized with his 8-ness, his personality type, sometimes he's very passionate about things, and to me, I read that as anger. He just blew up all over the world, and my world's falling apart, and everything's bad, and you know what I mean? But then the next minute, he's like, what do you want for dinner? You know, and I'm like, what just happened? Like, I need some closure. I need you to tell me you love me real quick. Like, what's happening? But now I'm seeing that, since knowing that he's an 8 and studying that, reading about that, and now I see it's his passion, not necessarily anger. And I can say, okay, passion moment is over. You know what I mean? Now I understand
So
his
he's
language.
reacting to the situation.
Yes.
He's not blaming you for the
No.
situation.
Right. Just feeling the passion of the moment,
Yeah.
and then it's it's over and we're moving on. So I'm not so whiplashed all the time.
But on the flip side, I feel like she feels everything. I'm like,
he has to
there's so
learn
many
patience
feelings.
for my emotions.
There's so many feelings in your life. Like,
It's true. I'm a 9, so I feel everything.
When I was a teacher, I used to have to write students up, and I had a student one time, and I wrote all in capitals because I just thought my writing sucked, and I thought it was nice and neat. She broke down in tears because she said, "You wrote in capitals, you're yelling at me."
Oh.
But one thing that we learned, because I said that, because one thing that we learned when I had to write up a student, it was like an Oreo cookie. You always gave them a compliment, and then you
Gave some
graciously
critique.
told them a little bit of
Ways they
course
can improve.
correction,
Yes.
and then you gave them another compliment on top.
Yes.
And that always made it, like I would have students say, "I just love it when you write me up," because they didn't feel bad. It was in there, but it wasn't like,
Yes.
you suck at what you're doing.
Right.
and the thing is, though, on the flip side of that, again, I might be able to say, yeah, you were really crappy in this area, but I can look at myself and say, I sucked in this area and this area. Like, there's that. I apply it to myself, too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not just a mean person. I'm just straightforward with, like, yeah, I sucked. I'm sorry. I should have done better. Like,
Black and white.
Yeah.
It's all black and white in Aaron's world. In my world, it's all gray.
all great.
All right, number 3.
Which is why you're wearing black and white.
That's right. Number 3, communication is important, but it's not the most important. Commitment is actually the most important. You can communicate all you want, but if you're not committed to the marriage, it will be a well-communicated divorce. You have to learn how to communicate with each other, and that's part of getting to know each other. But again, commitment is the most important. Luke 9:60, Jesus said to him, "No one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God." I think personally the same truth can be applied to marriage. You're not fit for marriage if you're looking at anything else all the time. If you're thinking the grass is greener on the other side, like you committed to this, you made a vow, stick to it, make it better, improve it, stop looking at everything else like it's better. So commitment is actually the most important thing. And this comes down to in arguments. Sometimes couples will threaten divorce all the time. You're not committed if you're saying there's a way out. If you're committed, there is no way out, so we have to get through. Right? We're not going around this thing. We're going through this thing. You made a decision for life. You knew that on your wedding day. For better or worse, you said. So you got worse. Right? I heard somebody say that at some point, and I say it a lot to people, like, it's worse right now. But you signed up for that. You know what I mean? Let's get through it. Someday it will be better. You go through seasons. It was something we said sometimes when you were sick, and it was like you were always apologizing for it. And like, so I signed up for better, worse, and sickness and health. So we got worse and we got sick. It doesn't mean I want to leave. Like, I'm in this. You know what I mean? I'm committed to it. So you still made a commitment.
And you got to show up to grow up. Like,
Yeah.
If you want to make it through, you got to persevere.
Mm-hmm.
And I've known a lot of friends, like not Christian friends, that they get married and all of a sudden it's like, oh, but I miss hanging out with the boys, or like, oh, I want to go. I used to skateboard a lot. I want to go skate, but the wife says no. Like, I don't know. Like, there's argument on both sides, but you're committed to her. And like your friends come second, or wherever you put them on your path, on your seat on the bus, I guess.
Yeah.
And the commitment's there, but at the same time, you don't want to be a Nazi and
Right.
not let your spouse do anything. So, but the commitment's here.
Right.
And like, well, that was hard for, like, I toured full time when we were married. I was gone for months and months at a time. And eventually it started to wear on me, especially once we had kids. I was like, because she was so supportive, and it was my dream. And I traveled all around the world, and she was here. And eventually you start to feel guilty, kind of like, I'm married, but I'm on the road all the time. And then we had Telly, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, she's at home with the baby, and I'm missing out on my kid's life. And my wife's doing this by herself. It's not fair. So I had to
Right.
chop my lifelong dream off at the knees. this isn't my dream.
Right.
So it's.
You made a commitment.
Yeah.
Stick with it.
Yep.
Yeah. Threatening divorce a lot is abusive. I have written there too, and I want to mention that because we don't often think of it as abusive, but it's saying I'm going to leave over and over. You're eroding that trust in your marriage and saying I'm not actually committed to this. So why should the other person believe that you're committed to this and put all their trust in you if you're always saying, threatening divorce, or even, well, divorce me then, right? So you're not saying I'm going to divorce you, but you're saying, well, in an argument maybe, well, divorce me then. It's a form of manipulation. You're basically saying I'm not going to change, so you have to, or you might as well leave. It's just manipulation. It's abusive. And instead, why don't you address the fear behind that statement? The fear behind the statement is, what if I can't change, right? But you're putting it on them. Your fear is, what if I can't change enough for you? Address that. Say that in a vulnerable place. What if I can't change this? What is that? What if I try and I fail? Address that. Don't throw the D word around in a marriage. Yeah.
I was going to say, there was a time in my marriage where my husband did say, just leave, because he was frustrated about something. And so I went to the Lord and I was like, I didn't know what to do. But I came across the scripture that if the unbelieving spouse wants to leave, they're free to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, Greg, I can't leave. I said, but you're the unbelieving spouse, so if you want to go, you're free to go, but I can't break that. So
Yeah, that's a different tack for sure, but yeah, good to
but it
mention.
worked.
Yeah.
I knew
Then
when
he
I married
realized-
him, he'd never leave.
Yeah.
He's just not that kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And, he can make it frustrating, but I knew he wouldn't be.
Yeah. So yeah, it's all about faithfulness. Commitment is about faithfulness, and faithfulness means more than just not cheating. Faithfulness is being devoted to one another, attending to each other's needs, caring for each other on a deeper level. It's just not cheating. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you get it. Means more than just not cheating. Love each other.
Got it.
Nail it. Number 4. Conflict is inevitable. Learn how to fight well, not just avoid fights. I think the common misconception is that happy marriages never fight. Not yet. It's just not true. And it's not realistic to not want to fight all the time. And again, if you grow up in a hint dropper family, not fighting is actually not healthy. You have to figure stuff out. You're two separate people. You're not going to be on the same page 100% of the time. So why don't you figure out how to disagree well? It doesn't have to be a fight. It doesn't have to be this huge earth-shattering argument. Let's fight in a healthy way. Let's disagree in a healthy way. Ephesians 4:26 says, and don't sin by letting anger control you. Don't let the sun go down while you're still angry, for anger gives a foothold to the devil. Talking about bitterness, don't allow things to fester in your relationship, right? Fix them on the same day, and it's not going to last months and months and years and years. And when you let stuff fester like that, it underpins everything. It seeps its way into everything. Every snide little comment, every look, even like body language toward each other. You're like stiff and cold, and the other person feels that. Just deal with it, right? Ephesians 4:31 says, get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. Instead, be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as Christ has forgiven you. I think it's just naive to think you're never going to fight. And that goal creates this unattainable, magical thing in your head. Like, you think these other perfect couples never fight, and so we have to, it's not realistic. The goal should be to have healthy arguments that you can recover quickly from and still function through. Yeah, sorry, I guess we already finished. And so one of the pre-marriage one of the pre-marriage counseling things that we always give out are these fair fighting rules.
Really?
You laminated it? Yeah. We hand out this little thing at pre-marriage counseling, and we always say, keep it on your fridge or mirror or somewhere prominent for at least the first year. Because you're training yourself how to disagree well. It's fair fighting rules. And, you're going to violate them from time to time, but you talk about it afterward. You say, I shouldn't have done that, and you both have to sort of come to this agreement about it. Yes, we're going to commit to doing our absolute best to fight in this way.
Getting these guidelines.
And it's very simple things. I'll take thank you. No degrading language, no blaming, no yelling, no use of force, no talk of divorce. Define yourself, not your spouse. Meaning don't say you're always this and you're never that and you don't do this, but you're saying I feel like I need this from you. You're defining you, not defining them. Stay in the present. You don't need to go back 100 years. Let's just tackle this one thing today. Let's fix this today, not the thing you did 87 months ago and I still remember. Take turns speaking. No one person has to dominate the conversation. Take turns. And when necessary, use timeouts. This might be my favorite one because it feels so elementary, just like childish. But sometimes you need that. Do you know it takes 20 solid minutes for your physical body to stop reacting to stress and anger? 20 minutes for you to calm down. So a good timeout when you're really heated in a fight is a solid 20 minutes, but no longer than an hour. You take a break. And not in because the silent treatment can also be sort of abusive and a form of manipulation in a relationship. It's not like that. It's a timeout, an official timeout. You call whatever you need to do. Like, I just need a minute. We are going to come back and we're going to fix this. But right now I just need to not be in the same room with you. You know what I mean? Lock it up. So yeah, it's healthy for you to give your partner that space. Let you both come down, get back to neutral, and you come back together and you're much different people talking about the same problem. So when necessary, use timeouts. If you have trouble with these things, frame them. Put it on your fridge. Refer to it when you're fighting, but not in a manipulative, you need to do all these things kind of way, but you hold yourself to it. You're holding yourself to it. I do have more detail on each of those in this packet that I'm going to hand out at the end. So, conflict is inevitable. Learn how to fight well. Number 5. Big revelation.
You didn't talk about the other kind of family.
What's that?
My family. That says everything and.
Didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you tell me what I missed.
Well, you talked about how your family fights and how hiding it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It just means it happens in an unhealthy way that's unaccountable.
Right.
And I think with kids, I don't think you should ever knock out, drag out in front of them. There's time and place, but I think it's healthy for my kids to see us disagree. Mm-hmm. And I think it's healthy to see, because I grew up in a house where, we always said whatever we thought. Not mean or disrespectful, but it was just
a very honest
you
family.
knew how you felt about everything, and but it can get unhealthy quick, and my family did in a lot of ways because my dad I grew up in a rough house for a lot of years, but there was definitely love there, and we knew that. But it's good for a kid growing up in that household. I knew where we all stood, whereas I grew up, my best friend, his family was like her family, they never fought. But their household was a wreck deep under.
Right.
Because it looked good. It was like the Brady Bunch until you got beneath the facade, you know what I mean? And I was close enough in their family to see it and know it. And I was like, man, he's always I wish my parents were like your parents. They would just say how they felt. So it's healthy, I think, for our kids to see us disagree and work through things or have problems through the church or whatever, and we work it out and they see that. I think they're stronger for it.
Yeah, you just have to be careful to not only let them see the disagreements,
Absolutely.
but also the resolution.
And the win, yeah.
let them feel the resolution at the end and the peacemaking again, or they'll just think you're always fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Marriage isn't 50-50. It's 100-100. Galatians 6:2 says, bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. John 15:13 says, there's no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. Marriage is a pattern of the gospel. It is, we're committed to each other. We die for one another. We'll sacrifice our own comfort and desires for the other. We're committed to each other's purposes as well. These things aren't true only when things are good and happy, but even when things are going badly. It's a pattern of the gospel in that I sacrifice my own wants and needs and desires sometimes for him, and he does the same for me at different points. But it's when you see it as 50-50, it's like, you complete me, right? It's like I'm looking to him for all of the things that I need. Like it's his job to fulfill me. And so when I get that mindset, I'm holding those things over his head when he doesn't, right? It's not his job to fulfill me. That's Christ's job. That's why that relationship comes first. God fulfills my needs. He supplies my every need. That's what the Bible says. So that I can be the best person that I can be for him. See how that flips it? I'm not relying on him for everything. I am serving him, basically. What?
I just thought it was a funny analogy.
What?
Like we're all like these pots, right? The potter's hands, like, and he fills in all of our gaps, and then I'm just the like lacquer that makes her look good.
No, but it's true. We can sort of give each other that final piece, if you will, but we're not meant to just complete one another. Everyone says forgiveness is a lovely idea. This is a C.S. Lewis quote, until they have something to forgive. Perhaps the most painful and courageous part of forgiveness is when we must absorb the cost of a spouse's sin. Second, we must say, I will pay the debt for this sin instead. The debt doesn't just mysteriously evaporate. If I loan you $10 and you refuse to pay, the money doesn't magically appear back in my wallet. Someone has to eat it, and this often trips up reconciliation. We want to forgive, but we assume that it shouldn't cost us. We feel that sheer willingness to not retaliate is sufficient, and we instinctively react to the injustice of absorbing a debt. Like, you did it, now I have to pick up the tab. To treat our spouse as their sin deserves, with anger, withdrawal, or emotional punishment seems more fair and equitable. But when you do this, you've forgotten just how much you've already been forgiven. You've forgotten the debt Christ paid for you.
That's why that verse is so good.
You were forgiven a great debt. Marriage often means doing the same. So I think so often in marriage we have to just sort of eat it. We just have to absorb the other's failures or the other's lack or whatever, and we think that it shouldn't be this way. He should be more for me. He should be whatever. And actually, we're meant to serve each other, forgive each other, and forgiveness is costly. So, not only is forgiveness costly, it's constant, and it's a choice. It's not a feeling. We often think it's a feeling. I don't feel like forgiving yet, so I must not be in forgiveness. It's first and foremost a choice. You will end up feeling it once you've chosen to do it. But it is a choice, and it can be a process. Sometimes we want to rush someone else's process, and we should just back off and allow them to process. Meaning, sometimes, again, sort of manipulative way, we don't realize we're doing it, but we want to say, but you said you forgave me, right? And force their process of forgiving you. Just allow them to forgive in their process, move on the best that you can, win their trust back by doing the opposite of whatever you did to mess it up in the first place, and just allow them to process. That process can't take forever. It shouldn't take forever, but you have to sort of allow them to move on and be better.
Like, yeah, I feel like I did this the other night, being forward. We were talking about something, and I said something a little too harsh, I guess, and she got upset. And I didn't feel like I did anything wrong. But I lay on the couch, and she's like, I'm going to bed. I'm like,
Pout.
yeah, she's like little pouty pants, and I'm like, all right, like I could stay out here and let her be mad, and then she falls asleep, and then that goes against everything we practice. I'm like, is there anything I can do for you? And she's,
Immediately I'm back.
and she's
oh my
like,
gosh,
you could just snuggle me to sleep.
Just
I'm like,
snuggle.
all right. I'm like, fine.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, he learned that he has to ask me sometimes. I'm not just going to say it. And he absorbed that. Took one for the team. And that's it.
I was in the middle of some good TikToks, you know.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, you don't need your marriage to look good. You need it to be good.
And it's easier just to suck it up. Otherwise, she goes to bed mad, and then tomorrow, who knows if we're going to be like,
Right.
she's still going to be pouting, or I'm going to be like bent that she went to bed angry, or, you know, who knows. Just
Yeah.
easier just to suck it up and go snuggle her for a couple minutes, and then she feels good again.
Right. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Just, yeah. I need closure.
She's all about
sometimes.
closure. I'm
I
like,
need
okay.
closure. I need nice things said. Say nice words.
Yeah, that's the thing. You need to say 3 nice things.
Make up for the 87 mean things you said. But yeah, I think a lot of us focus on what our marriage looks like to the world. You don't need it to look good. You need it to be good. So 100, 100. You're both giving 100, not 50-50. I think I also learned, just to add a little bit to that, for me, and I think for a lot of women, I teach this a lot in Bold and Brave, but we tend to hold things over their head, like small things like trash and dishes and laundry. And I think at a certain point I had to sort of just say, look, this is how I serve my family. If I didn't have a family, I wouldn't have any of this. If I didn't have a husband, I wouldn't have his laundry to so I started to change my perspective to, this is how I love him. This is how I serve my family, and just be grateful for the laundry and the dishes and the house to clean, and like, at least I have those things. And so when I changed my perspective on that, a lot of things changed between us too. I see it all as serving my family and not something I have to nag him about. And he does help with it. I'm not saying he doesn't, but like.
Well, I do different things. Like, laundry is not my bag. Like, you know, I don't like laundry. Not that you do either, but
No.
you're not outside at 3 a.m. shoveling snow.
Right.
I am. You're not outside working in the cold fixing cars when they broke down. I am.
Right.
Like,
So did you have to go through that same thing and say, this is how I'm serving?
no, I never thought of it like that. Like, I'm expect you to go out and work on cars, just like I would hope you wouldn't expect me to do laundry. Because I hate it.
Let's not take that away from this. Husbands do laundry.
Yeah, I do it occasionally. Until I'm out of pants, and then I'm like, all right, I'll do it.
That's the key. All right, so number 6. Sex isn't just about passion. It's important to talk about in a marriage discussion, right? 1 Corinthians 7 talks a lot about it. The husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs, and the wife should fulfill her husband's. The wife gives authority over her body to her husband, and the husband gives authority over his body to his wife. Notice how all of this language is about what you're giving, not what you're taking. Right? It's not what you're demanding from your spouse, it's what you're giving to your spouse. So sex is more about intimacy and trust in the marriage relationship. It's about sharing that moment that's just yours. It's not anyone else's. It's not the kids. It's not whatever else is going on in your life. It's just yours. It's about knowing each other on a level that nobody else knows you. Growing together and all of that. So men and women view sex very differently. It's an important revelation for most marriages. And I wrote it as, women see sex as icing on the love cake. Meaning the love cake has to be baked before the icing goes on top, right? Men see it just the opposite. They see love as the icing on the sex cake. And so often when there's an intimacy problem in a relationship, someone has to start that cycle. Right? You both feel like the other person should. Women feels like, no, he should love me first, and then I'll feel like that. But the man is thinking the opposite, right? We're not intimate, so why should I love you? It's just, I don't know that it's all men and all women. Maybe it's flipped for some people, but I think that's probably more of the norm. We see things differently, and so somebody has to start the cycle. And again, that's laying down your life for each other.
Well, it's just a cycle you can get caught in.
Serving each other, yeah.
Like, oh, I don't feel loved because she doesn't want to give herself to me. And then she's like, well, I don't feel loved because he doesn't Or I don't want to give it to him because I don't feel loved.
Right.
It's just a stupid circle you can get caught in.
Stupid cycle, yeah. So somebody has to fix it.
Someone's got
Somebody
to
has-
suck it up and eat it.
Yes. But yeah, the world, this is stuff from the pre-marriage class that I just thought was good to include. The world wants you to believe that if sex works now, it'll always work between you. That develops problems later when you discover what used to work isn't working anymore, and you'll think that you're falling out of love or the passion just isn't there anymore. But you'll go through seasons. If you're in a weird season, don't worry, it'll pass. If you're in a good season, be prepared, it's probably gonna pass. Don't try to hang on to something that isn't meant to last forever. Relationships change with time. Don't spend time worrying about what you're losing, just jump into the next chapter gladly. Serve your spouse. Don't withhold out of anger or laziness or manipulation. Be generous. Sex is meant to bring the two of you together. It's a unique relationship between the two of you and the two of you alone. Have fun with it. And this last line is my favorite marriage advice I've ever heard.
Even though you didn't do it.
Yeah, it's not from me. I didn't make it up. But I read it once and I love it. Sleep naked the first year. You'll learn a lot about conflict resolution. People now that I've done this class with a few people, they're like, I took kids. I'm like, oh, I don't want to know. But yeah, sleep naked the first year, you'll learn a lot about conflict resolution. And lastly, pray for each other. Ecclesiastes 4:9-12 says, 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other person can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Likewise, 2 people lying close together can keep each other warm. But how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but 2 can stand back to back and conquer. 3 are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. Pray for each other. I have often prayed in a relationship, convict him, God. Right? Like, show him all the bad things. Yes.
That's news.
Show him everything he's doing wrong and make me vindicated in this. But 9 times out of 10, I'm the one who gets convicted. In that moment where I'm saying, God, just how dare he, and just show him where he's wrong, and I end up leaving that like, I'm dumb. Like, I get it. You know what I mean? Thank you, God. I need to go back and apologize. So it's not just about, and I think I'm honestly still trying to manipulate him. Like, I still want him to do what I want, and I'm using God to do it. When I should just be saying, God, just come help us. Yes, convict him, but convict me too. Show me where I'm going wrong. Where
That's
I need
probably
to apologize.
especially hard for you because I'm not very manipulable.
No. Yeah, no. He does not move unless he feels like he needs to. Which is, I mean, so praying for God to convict him isn't necessarily a bad thing, because I shouldn't be the one trying to change him. Right? God changes. God softens hearts. The Holy Spirit convicts. I shouldn't be the one saying you need to change all of the time. God is the one who changes hearts. We can only change ourselves. So yeah. And I tell people a lot, just counseling conversations, if you don't love the person that you're with, how they are in this moment right now, and with the understanding that they may never change, is the person right now somebody that you can be with forever? Right? Because I think a lot of times we get into relationships and we're like, they have potential.
Like missionary marriage, I think.
Yes. Like, well, they'll change someday, or they'll want this someday. They'll come to my side someday. But what if they never change? Is the person that you're with right now the person that you can love for life? If not, maybe don't marry them. Right? They may never change. And so even once you're into the marriage, you have to realize you fell in love with that person the way that they are. Stop trying to change them all the time to become something they're not, and just maybe love them the way they are today. And honestly, love is the thing that makes you want to change
That's all.
the most.
And like, that's not to say if like you're married to an unbeliever or something
Yeah.
like that, you can't ask God for those things to come.
Right, no.
Like, that's not, but like to be like, God, make him put the toilet seat down, or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have a problem with that, but something stupid, you know?
Yeah.
Just deal with it.
Right.
You know, they make those slow close lids.
Yes, we have one.
You know, and my husband never puts the toilet seat down. And, you know, I'm like, Greg, we have that. All you gotta do is push
Tap
it
it.
down and walk away. It's gonna go down slow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there's just some things that we have that just aren't,
Yeah.
they weren't around during the last couple of generations.
And I think it's often those
The lid
things
has
that
always
get.
closed though.
It gets. It's true. But it's
Might
those
not have
kind of
been
little
solved.
things that get under our skin. Like, is that really that big of a deal? Is it such a high price to pay to cover that for your spouse? You know what I mean? And yet that's the weird, dumb things that gets under our skin. Just be appreciative of the things they do accomplish, the ways they do serve you, and just suck it up for each other.